Are we living in a simulation? Or is this universe a kind of a game world? Is there a chance in which this life could be a dream? Well, I want you all to plug your earphones and listen to this video fully. I bet you will start questioning your reality. This fantasy is about reproduction. We use the word reproduction in two principal ways. We talk about the biological reproduction of a species, and we also speak of reproduction in terms of a painting, a photograph, a recording, a movie, or a videotape. Now, what is reproduction in terms of painting, photograph, and movies all about? Well, hundreds of years ago, kings of Europe formed feudal alliances by marrying the princesses of far-off states. Before entering into a marriage contract, they would have painters who sent portraits of the lady in question to see if his king approved of her. On one such occasion, Henry VIII of England was badly cheated in this procedure by a too flattering portrait of Anne of Cleves, who was a queen. Therefore, there developed a kind of morale among the artists in the European tradition to make faithful and exact reproduction, and they perfected their techniques of painting. Beginning with the marvelous work of Renaissance and later the Flemish painters, and going on finally with the art official of the 19th century, we got what we now call the photographic realism. At that time, they said, isn't there some more scientific way of doing this? And so they discovered the camera. First, there were those brownish daguerreotypes. People said, well, that is pretty. It really looks like grandpa, doesn't it? But they said several things are missing. It isn't colored for one thing. So they tinted them. And then they said, why, it's really lifelike, but there are some people whose whole style of life, whose whole personality is in the way they move. And if you just take a static shot like that, the personality isn't there. It's the way they go. It's the way they move. So they invented a way of making the images move, which we call the movies. Do you remember when the first movies came out? They were all moving in a jerky way, the Charlie Chaplin kind of movies. They smoothed it out and everyone said, now that's real life like. But after a while they said, but there is another thing missing, which is sound. A whole lot of the personality is in the voice. So can't we have them talking at the same time that they move? And someone invented the talkies. Eventually they added color to them and everyone said, wow, now we are really getting somewhere. Then to make it even more real, they put them in a three-dimensional process which required that you wear a special spectacles to see. But then people said, why is it that every time we want to see a movie, we have to go down to the center of the town? Can't we have it all at home? And so television was introduced. They started out with black and white. They improved it, colored it, and that's where we are now. Not quite, because somebody has developed a thing that which we shall all be seeing soon. The hologram. A television image produced by laser beams in which you see a three-dimensional figure out in the air in front of you. So we all say, now isn't that marvelous? But of course, when you go up to it and put your hand on it, your hand goes right through it. You can't touch it. And you see, that is the trouble with television. You look at whatever you are seeing behind a screen, but it's intangible, it doesn't smell, and it won't relate to you. So there are future problems to be solved in the techniques of electronic reproduction, and they'll do it. They'll manage a way in which the electronic emission sources can be solidified, and by which they make the air vibrate so that you can touch the figure. You won't be able to push your hand through it because the air will be going faster than your hand. Imagine that. If there is a beautiful dancer on television, you will actually be able to go up and embrace her. But she won't know you are there. She won't respond to you. And you will say, well, that's not very lifelike. Just as people once said, if the photograph doesn't move, it's not very lifelike. If it doesn't talk, it's not very lifelike. They'll next say, if the tangible three-dimensional reproduction doesn't respond, it's not very lifelike. So they will have to figure out a technique for doing that. What will they do? Will our technology be able to develop such a technique? Of course they will. Sitting in your home, you will watch the scene on a kind of stage, not on a screen, and there will be a TV camera observing you. That TV camera will report back everything you do into a computer, and the computer will manage each bit of information going into the image that you are looking at. And it will immediately decide what is the appropriate response to your approach that you are making to that image. Won't that be great? She may slap you in the face or she may kiss you. You never know. But eventually you will say, this is still not really the kind of reproduction I wanted. What I want is, it is to be able to identify with one of the characters in the scene. We want not only to watch the drama that is being performed on the stage, but actually we want to get into it. We will want to be wired in with kind of electrodes on our brain that will actually allow us to feel the emotions of the people acting on the stage. Eventually, we will get absolutely perfect reproductions and be able to see that image so vividly that we shall become it. And so the question arises, could that be where we are already? Are we a reproduction which over the centuries of evolution has worked out to be a replica of something else that was going on, and we are where we always were? Just think about it. There is a possibility for that too.